She called me disgusting. I had the power to destroy her. And I used it. Here's what happened next. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment where you are watching from. Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Sarah, and I'm going to share a story with you that changed my life forever. It's a story about feeling invisible, about pain that builds up over years, and about finally finding the courage to speak up. I know many of you might see yourself in this story, and that's why I'm telling it. 'Cause we all deserve to be seen. Let me take you back to a Sunday in October. The sun was shining bright over the city of Riverside, and I found myself pulling into the parking lot of the Riverside Country Club. You know that feeling when you're about to walk into something, and you already know it's going to be hard? That's exactly how I felt that day. I had been invited by my sister Michelle. She wanted me to meet her newborn baby girl. On the surface, it sounded like a lovely family gathering. A chance to hold a tiny life in my arms, to feel that connection we all crave. But deep down I knew there was more to it. With Michelle there always was. She had a way of making every gathering feel like a performance, like everyone was on stage and she was directing the show. Michelle and I have always been different. She's the outgoing one, the confident one, the one everyone looks at when she walks into a room. I've always been quieter, more thoughtful, working behind the scenes. And for years, that difference had created a distance between us that never quite felt right. I walked through the heavy doors of the country club, and immediately I could feel it. That familiar tension in the air. The hum of Sunday brunch conversations, the clink of glasses, distant laughter from the patio. On the surface, it all looked so peaceful. But I could sense something underneath, something dark and heavy that I couldn't quite name. When I stepped into the dining room, I saw her. Michelle was standing near the high chair, and even from across the room, I could feel the shift in the air around her. She looked beautiful, of course. She always does. But there was something in her posture, something in the way she was holding herself. She looked rigid, like she was bracing for something. Her eyes were scanning the room like a general inspecting troops, taking inventory of everyone around her. I took a deep breath and started walking toward her. I told myself that this would be okay, that we could get past whatever was between us, that family matters more than old hurts. I was so hopeful in that moment, you know? I really was. But when Michelle saw me, something changed in her face. Her expression tightened. She pulled her baby closer to her chest, holding her protectively. And then she looked at me, and the warmth I had been hoping to share with her just evaporated. It disappeared like morning mist under the sun. "Don't touch my baby," she said. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife. "You are disgusting." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I honestly felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Time seemed to slow down. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could feel my own heartbeat in my ears, loud and terrifying. And I realized something in that moment that I had been avoiding for a long time. This wasn't just about being dismissed or overlooked anymore. This was something much deeper. This was cruelty. A few people around us turned to look. I could feel their eyes on me, could sense the discomfort spreading through the room like a stain. I wanted to defend myself. I wanted to scream and cry and tell her how wrong she was about me. I wanted to tell everyone in that room about all the times I had helped her, supported her, been there for her. But I couldn't. The words were stuck in my throat. So I did what I always did. I retreated. I forced a smile onto my face even though inside I was falling apart. I kept my hands firmly at my sides because the last thing I wanted was to give her another reason to attack me. I was trying so hard to make this easier for everyone else, to smooth things over, to disappear into the background where I was most comfortable. I looked at the baby. She was so tiny, so innocent. She didn't understand what was happening. She just saw someone and reached out with her little fingers the way babies do. It was pure and beautiful and heartbreaking. Because I could see that this child was already learning from her mother that some people were beneath us. That some people didn't deserve kindness or trust. For the rest of that brunch, I sat quietly at the edge of the table. I watched and listened while everyone else talked around me. Michelle dominated every conversation. She was funny and charming and confident. People laughed at her jokes. People listened when she spoke. She was magnetic. But underneath all that charm I could see the control. I could see how she manipulated every interaction to keep herself at the center. And I realized something that hurt even more than her words. Nobody was going to stand up for me. Nobody was going to say, "Hey, that was wrong. That was cruel." Everyone just moved on, pretending like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't sitting right there, bleeding inside. That's when it hit me. I had spent my entire life trying to be invisible. Trying to keep the peace. Trying to make things easy for everyone else. And all I had gotten in return was exactly what I deserved, apparently. Disrespect. Dismissal. And now, public humiliation. When the brunch finally ended, I felt completely drained. I said my goodbyes politely and walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time before I even started the engine. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. The drive back to my apartment in the city felt like it took forever. Maple Hill, that's where I live. It's a quiet neighborhood, peaceful and safe. But that day, the drive felt like a journey through my entire life. Every hurt, every time I had been overlooked or dismissed, it all came flooding back. I replayed Michelle's words over and over in my head. "You are disgusting." 6 words. But they felt so heavy, so powerful. It wasn't just what she said that hurt. It was who said it. It was someone I loved, someone who was supposed to know me. Someone who knew exactly what would hurt me the most. And I thought about all the times I had been there for her. The times I had helped her with her business. The times I had covered for her mistakes. The times I had kept quiet when she made decisions that could have hurt our family. I had always been in the background, doing what needed to be done, never asking for recognition or thanks. I just wanted to be helpful. I just wanted to matter. But none of it had mattered to her. By the time I got home, I felt something shifting inside me. It wasn't just sadness anymore. It was something else. Something that felt like anger but deeper. More determined. I realized that I couldn't keep living this way. I couldn't keep letting people treat me like I was nothing. I couldn't keep choosing peace at the cost of my own dignity. I sat down at my laptop and started looking through files I had been keeping for years. Financial documents. Investment records. Numbers that told a story nobody knew except me. When you spend years in the background of someone else's life, you see things that other people miss. You understand systems. You understand money. You understand power. Michelle owns an investment firm in the city. It's called Riverside Investment Partners, and from the outside it looks like a huge success. She's always talking about her big deals, her important clients, her brilliant strategies. She's always the smartest person in the room, the one who makes the best decisions, the one everyone should listen to. But I know the truth. I've been investing in her firm since the beginning. Not because I thought she was such a genius. I did it because she asked me to. 'Cause she needed help. Because I was her sister, and that's what family does. They help each other even when it costs them. For years I had been pouring money into that business. Carefully tracked, meticulously documented. I knew every line item. I knew where every dollar came from and where it went. And I had been quietly watching how dependent her firm had become on my capital. When I sat down at my desk that night after the brunch, I pulled up all those spreadsheets. I had spent so many hours organizing this information, never really understanding why I was doing it. Maybe some part of me always knew that one day I would need to see the full picture. And as I looked at those numbers, really looked at them for the first time, I could feel my breath catching in my throat. The firm was over-leveraged. Do you know what that means? It means they had borrowed more money than they could actually pay back. They were living on the edge, one small push away from falling off completely. And those pending deals that Michelle was always talking about so confidently, most of them depended on credit lines that I controlled. Lines of credit that she didn't even know I was watching. She thought she was running the show completely, but really, I had been quietly holding up the foundation the entire time. I sat back in my chair and just stared at the screen. The realization was overwhelming. I held more power than I had ever admitted to myself. The influence was right there in front of me. hiding in spreadsheets and financial projections. One withdrawal on my part could trigger delays, could cause missed payments. It could force her to scramble for solutions, could bring everything crashing down. The temptation was almost intoxicating. I won't lie to you. In that moment, sitting alone in my apartment with all these numbers in front of me, I felt something I had never felt before. Felt powerful. And it felt good. I started imagining what would happen if I pulled my money out. I could see it so clearly. Michelle would wake up one day and suddenly realize that the foundation under her business was shaking. She would have to make calls she didn't want to make. She would have to admit that she wasn't in complete control. She would have to face the fact that someone she had just called disgusting was actually the person keeping her entire operation alive. The irony was beautiful, almost poetic. But as I sat there caught up in these thoughts, I felt something else too. A voice in my head, quiet but persistent, asking me if this was really who I wanted to be. I spent hours that night going through every detail, every pending deal, every line item, every projection. I was mapping out exactly where I held leverage. I was building a case for why I had the right to do this. I was convincing myself that this was justice, not revenge. But somewhere deep down I knew the difference. And I wasn't sure which one I was actually doing. I realized that I was at a crossroads. I could let this moment pass. I could stay silent and keep the peace, just like I always did. I could pretend that what happened at the brunch didn't matter, that it was just one bad day, that things would go back to normal eventually. Or I could act. I could use the power I had been holding on to all this time. I could make her feel small the way she had made me feel small. I told myself that I wasn't being impulsive. I told myself that I was thinking this through carefully. I told myself that I was just considering my options. But the truth was, I had already made my decision. I was just trying to convince myself that it was the right one. By the time the sun came up the next morning, I had a plan. It wasn't a plan born out of anger exactly. It was something more calculated than that. Something more deliberate. I was going to withdraw my investment from Michelle's firm. I was going to do it carefully. I was going to make sure every document was perfect, every step was legal, every action was defensible. And I was going to do it in a way that would send a message. A message that said, you can't treat people like they don't matter. You can't assume that everyone you dismiss is powerless. You can't take for granted the people who have been quietly supporting you all along. Over the next few days I started preparing. I called my financial advisors. I spoke with my lawyer. I didn't tell them why I was doing this. I just explained that I wanted to make a strategic adjustment to my portfolio. They didn't ask too many questions. They helped me with the paperwork, checked the contracts, made sure everything was airtight. I felt like I was assembling a machine. Every piece had to fit perfectly. Every part had to work together. Because this couldn't fail. If there was any mistake, any loose end, Michelle might figure out what I was doing before I was ready. I started attending industry events and networking meetings, just to observe. I went to the Fairhaven Business Summit, which is where a lot of the important players in our city gather. And I watched Michelle in her element. She was confident as always, commanding attention, dismissing any concerns about risk or instability. She was so certain that she had everything under control, that nothing could threaten her. But I could see the cracks. I could see where her confidence had made her careless. I could see all the places where one unexpected shock could cause everything to unravel. And I realized something important. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about something much bigger. This was about accountability. This was about someone who had built success on the assumption that they were invulnerable, finally having to confront reality. As I drove home from that networking event, I felt calm for the first time in days. The anxiety had been replaced by something different. A sense of purpose. A sense that I was finally doing something that mattered. I knew what I had to do. And I knew that once I did it, there would be no going back. The morning I decided to go through with it, I woke up early. I didn't feel nervous or scared anymore. Felt clear. Felt focused. I felt like I was finally taking control of my own life. I sat at my desk in my apartment. My laptop was open. All my files were organized. My phone was within reach. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head. I knew exactly what needed to happen and in what order. I started filling out the transfer forms. Every field had to be perfect. Every number had to be exact. I couldn't afford even a single mistake. This had to be flawless. As I was doing this, the bank flagged a question about one of my earlier transactions. They wanted additional verification for compliance purposes. It was a minor thing, but it meant I had to make a phone call and explain myself. I had anticipated this. I had prepared for this. So I stayed calm. I provided the information they needed. I answered their questions clearly and efficiently. My financial advisor was with me through all of it. She was calm and professional, but I could sense the gravity of what I was doing. She was helping me take an action that would change everything. And she knew it. As the funds started to move, I watched the numbers update in real time on the screen. It was happening. It was actually happening. The investment that had been part of Michelle's firm for years was being withdrawn. The foundation was shifting. The balance was changing. I felt a rush of satisfaction. But I also felt something else. A twinge of guilt. A quiet voice asking me if I was doing the right thing. I pushed the voice away. I told myself that Michelle deserved this. I told myself that this was justice. I told myself that this was about teaching someone a lesson. But somewhere deep inside I wasn't entirely sure. By late afternoon everything was finalized. Every document was verified. Every step was complete. The withdrawal was done. The money was gone. And now it was out of my hands. I sat back in my chair and let out a long breath. I had done it. After weeks of planning and preparing, I had actually done it. I had taken my power back. Or at least, I was telling myself that's what I had done. I shut down my laptop and looked out the window at the city below. Somewhere out there, Michelle was going about her day, completely unaware of what was about to hit her. Her world was about to change. Her carefully constructed confidence was about to be shaken. And I was the one who was going to shake it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone, looking for alerts, checking for any sign that Michelle had discovered what I had done. But there was nothing yet. The world was still quiet. The bomb hadn't exploded yet. The next morning everything changed. I woke up to a barrage of notifications. Financial news outlets. Professional alerts. Internal messages from the firm. They all told the same story. Riverside Investment Partners was experiencing sudden liquidity issues. Major deals were being delayed. Clients were confused. Staff members were panicking. And at the center of it all was Michelle, suddenly scrambling to manage a crisis she didn't see coming. I followed the unfolding chaos from a distance. I read the internal emails that leaked out. I saw the panic in the communications that were sent to clients. I watched as the facade of confidence that Michelle had so carefully built started to crack under pressure. It was happening exactly the way I had planned it. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt something more complicated. I felt a mix of satisfaction and something that felt like sadness. I was watching my sister fall, and even though she had hurt me, even though she deserved this, it didn't feel as good as I thought it would. The messages kept coming. Employees worried about their jobs. Clients demanding explanations. Deals falling apart. Each one was another ripple spreading out from the action I had taken. Each one was evidence that my power was real, that I had changed something fundamental. But I could also see how much pain I was causing. Not just to Michelle but to all the people who worked for her. All the families who depended on the stability of that firm. All the clients who had trusted her with their money. That's when I started to question what I had done. Was this really about teaching Michelle a lesson? Or was I just using my pain as an excuse to hurt someone else? Was this justice? Or was this revenge? By the afternoon, the crisis had reached a peak. Michelle's attempts to calm everyone down weren't working. Her usual charm and confidence couldn't fix what had broken. She was faced with the reality that she didn't have all the answers. That she wasn't in complete control. That someone she had dismissed was actually holding her up. I imagined how she must be feeling. That moment when you realize that everything you thought was true is actually a lie. That moment when your confidence shatters. That moment when you understand that you've been wrong about someone important. I knew I needed to talk to her. I knew I needed to explain what I had done and why. But I also knew that I wasn't ready yet. I was still working through my own feelings. I was still trying to understand what I had become by taking this action. So I waited. I watched from a distance. And I let the consequences unfold without interfering. By that evening, I could see that Michelle had realized what had happened. She had figured out that I was the one behind this. She knew. And she was scared. 2 days after I withdrew my investment, Michelle called me. Her voice was different. It was smaller, weaker. She asked me to meet her at a coffee shop near my apartment. She said we needed to talk. Said yes. I arrived at the Maple Hill Cafe a few minutes early. I sat in a quiet corner in the back, away from the main area. I needed privacy for this conversation. I needed space to breathe. I wasn't sure what was going to happen, but I knew it was going to be intense. When Michelle walked in, I barely recognized her. She looked exhausted. Her hair was messy. She wasn't wearing makeup. The confident woman who had called me disgusting just days ago looked small and lost. She sat down across from me, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. We just looked at each other. And in that silence, I could see everything that was happening inside her. The anger, the fear, the realization, the shame. "I can't believe you did this," she said finally. Her voice was shaking. "Do you understand what you've done? You've destroyed everything. My firm is falling apart. My employees are panicking. My clients are leaving. How could you be so cold?" Took a breath. I had prepared for this moment. I had thought about what I would say. But now that it was actually happening, all my prepared words felt wrong. "Michelle," I said quietly, "I understand the impact. I understand what this is costing you. That's exactly why I did it." She stared at me. "You did it on purpose. To hurt me." "No," I said. And I meant it. "I did it to make you see me. I did it to make you understand that I matter. That I'm not invisible. That there are consequences when you treat someone like I don't deserve to exist." Michelle's hands gripped her coffee cup so tightly that her knuckles turned white. "You're angry about the brunch. That's what this is about. I said one harsh thing, and you destroy my entire company." "It wasn't one harsh thing," I said, and now I could feel the emotion coming through in my voice. "It was years of being dismissed. Years of being overlooked. Years of doing everything for you and getting nothing in return except disrespect. The brunch was just the moment when I finally couldn't take it anymore." Tears were streaming down Michelle's face now. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. I was stressed. I was nervous about the baby. I said something I didn't mean." "You meant it," I said firmly. "You looked me in the eye and called me disgusting. And you did it in front of people. You humiliated me because you knew you could. Because you knew I wouldn't fight back." Michelle was crying harder now. She looked broken. And the part of me that loved her wanted to comfort her. Wanted to tell her that it was okay. Wanted to fix this like I always did. But I didn't. Because I had learned something important. Fixing things for her meant breaking myself. And I couldn't do that anymore. "I'm sorry," Michelle said. "I'm so sorry. I never realized how much I was hurting you. I never realized how much you were doing for me. I just took it for granted. I took you for granted." I listened to her apology. And I realized that the action I had taken, the thing that had caused so much chaos, had finally gotten through to her. She could see me now. Not as the invisible sister in the background, but as a real person with real needs and real pain. "I'm not angry anymore," I said. "I was angry. I was so angry that I couldn't think straight. But I'm not anymore. What I want now is for things to be different between us. I want to be seen. I want to matter. I want to have a real relationship with you. Not this thing where I'm always just helping you and you're always just taking advantage." Michelle nodded. She understood. And I could see that she was going to change. Not because she had to, Not because I forced her to, but because she finally saw the cost of not changing. We talked for a long time that day. We talked about our childhoods. We talked about why we had grown so far apart. We talked about the ways we had hurt each other without even realizing it. By the time we left the cafe, something had shifted between us. We weren't fixed. Our relationship wasn't suddenly perfect. But we were on a new path. A path where I was no longer invisible. Where I was no longer just a supporting character in Michelle's life. As I drove home, I felt different. Lighter. Like I had been carrying something heavy for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to be free. But I also felt something else. I felt the weight of what I had done. I had caused real pain to real people. I had disrupted lives. I had done that intentionally, with full knowledge of the consequences. And I had to own that. I had to sit with that truth. Because the action I had taken might have been necessary to get Michelle's attention, but it had also been cruel. It had also been about revenge, even if I told myself it was about something else. That was the hard part. Understanding that both things could be true at the same time. That I could be standing up for myself and still be hurting someone else. That I could be taking back my power and still be acting from a place of anger and pain. In the weeks that followed, I spent a lot of time thinking about what had happened. I sat by my window in my apartment and I just let myself feel everything. The relief, the guilt, the satisfaction, the sadness, all of it. I realized something important. The real power wasn't in the money. The real power wasn't in watching Michelle fall. The real power was in knowing my own value. The real power was in being able to say no. The real power was in setting boundaries and protecting myself. I had taken a detour to get there. I had let my pain lead me to a place of revenge. But in the end, I had learned the lesson I needed to learn. And more importantly, I had helped Michelle learn it too. We started having regular conversations. Not awkward family dinners where we all pretended everything was fine. Real conversations where we actually listened to each other and shared what was really going on in our lives. Michelle began making changes in her business. She started paying more attention to risk management. She started listening to the concerns of her employees and her advisors. She became a better leader because she had been humbled. Because she had been forced to confront her own limitations. And I started making changes too. I reviewed my entire life and asked myself hard questions. Why had I been invisible for so long? Why had I let people treat me like I didn't matter? What was I afraid of? The answer was simple. I was afraid of conflict. I was afraid of being rejected. I was afraid that if I spoke up, if I asked for what I needed, people would leave me. So I had made myself small. I had made myself useful but unimportant. I had made myself the kind of person who could be dismissed because I didn't believe I was worth keeping around. That had to change. And it did. I started saying no to things I didn't want to do. I started speaking up in meetings at work when I had something to say. I started being honest about what I needed from my relationships. I started treating myself with the same respect I had always shown to other people. It wasn't easy. There were people who didn't like the new me. There were relationships that fell apart because I was no longer willing to carry them on my own. But that was okay. Because I was finally building a life based on my own values, not on what I thought other people needed from me. Michelle became someone I could actually rely on. She became someone who saw me and valued me. We're not best friends. We're not suddenly perfect with each other. But we're real with each other. And that matters. As I sit here and think back on everything that happened, I'm not entirely sure if what I did was right. I took action based on pain and anger. I hurt people who didn't deserve to be hurt. I let my sense of powerlessness drive me to a place of power, but that power came at a cost. But I also know that I needed to do something. I needed to stop being invisible. I needed to show Michelle that I mattered. And sometimes it takes something big and dramatic to wake people up to the reality they've been ignoring. What I learned is that standing up for yourself doesn't always look the way you think it will. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it involves pain. Sometimes it involves decisions you're not entirely proud of. But the alternative, staying small and invisible and allowing yourself to be treated like you don't matter, is so much worse. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, if you're feeling invisible or dismissed or undervalued by someone you care about, I want to tell you something. You matter. Your pain is real. Your needs are important. And you don't have to stay small to make room for someone else's bigness. I'm not saying you should do what I did. That's between you and your conscience. But I am saying that you need to do something. You need to set a boundary. You need to speak up. You need to make it clear that you're not okay with being treated like you don't matter. Because the truth is, silence is not peaceful. Silence is suffering. And you deserve better. I'm building my life differently now. I'm being intentional about who I spend my time with. I'm being clear about what I need. I'm protecting my energy and my peace. And I'm no longer waiting for someone else to give me permission to be important. That's the real victory. Not bringing someone else down, but lifting myself up. Not proving my power by hurting others, but proving my value by taking care of myself and refusing to accept less than I deserve. Took me a long time to get here. It took pain and anger and a kind of breakdown to get me to see what was true all along. I was never worthless. I was never invisible. I was just too scared to believe in my own value. Now I know better. And I'm finally living like I know it. This is my story. Thank you for listening. I hope it helps you see that you matter too. End.